All right, good evening, everybody. It's 5:30, time to call the meeting to order of the June 17th County Board of Commissioners meeting. And the first item is to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Do we have any citizens to be heard today on items not on the agenda? I know some of you were here for a purpose. We do have a 6 o'clock time period where we're going to talk about the Churches United grant application. I'm assuming that's what most of you are here for. So we will be doing that at 6 o'clock, and we do kind of have a limited amount of time because prior to this issue even coming before the board, we had established our Board of Equalization meeting that needs to be done at 6:30. And that is by law and timed, and we have timed periods for people who are actually disputing their property tax issues. So with that, we'll move to the 535 item, or excuse me, approval of the payment of the bills and vouchers.
So moved.
Second.
And the second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, 535, introduction of new building maintenance supervisor. Brian, I'll let you come up, and Joe, come on up.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Appreciate you taking this opportunity to allow me to introduce Joe Olson. Most of you know him. He has been asked to fill the vacant maintenance supervisor position, and he's been with the county for 8 years. So like I said, many of you know him, but I thought that since you had asked for us to go ahead and do a selection process, the chair of the board, Commissioner Campbell, was on the selection committee, as well as Lori Johnson, our auditor, and our human service director, Darren Brook, and myself, and we interviewed 6 people, and there were some very, very good candidates. We were very pleased with came before us, and we just felt that Joe was a real solid employee here and has the background to continue a good, solid maintenance program for the campus of Clay County. And Mr. Chair, you sat on that committee, so if you would like to...
Yeah, I will. I certainly, starting off and talking about Joe, we were all impressed with all of your answers that you gave, and of course in this process we give the same questions to everybody, and you really kind of see the difference in answers given, and it kind of shows through that process experience and maybe a little bit of philosophical issues on how you would manage a department. And we were very pleased, and you scored very high amongst all those interviewers. I do want to take a minute too to say that we did have 5 other well-qualified candidates, and we were very glad that they took the time to try to take the job that you got.
Right. Yeah.
So Joe, why don't you spend a minute and talk to the board and just tell us what your plans are.
Well, good evening, everyone. I want to thank you guys for selecting me and giving me this opportunity. So, very excited to get going and bring some different ideas to you guys. And it's been a busy couple days, and everybody's been so good to bring me up to speed. So, I was going to just get going on everything, and I welcome you guys to come by and visit me if you want to. If you got any concerns, you can always just call me, and if you want to come over, I'll give you the tour. It might put you to sleep, but it might help you understand a little bit better on the maintenance world end of it. So give me a call anytime you want, and that's it. And I want to thank everybody that I've gotten a lot of support around the county and a lot of congratulations, and so I want to take this opportunity to thank all those people that there's a bunch of them, so I want to thank them all as a whole in case I miss any of them. So that's all I got, and I look forward to working with you guys.
Congratulations.
Yep,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Time to get to work.
Yep, exactly. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, our next item is the 540, this is a request to fill a full-time juvenile counsel position in the non-secure program at the Juvenile Center.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, Stephen.
Thank you, guys. As you mentioned, we recently had a resignation in our non-secure program, and are looking for permission to rehire in this position. Based on the steps, this is in the 2014 budget, based on the steps, we would actually see a cost savings in replacing this position. So we'd be asking permission to post it in the paper, but also we recently just went through a hiring process in our secure program, and would ask permission from the board to, we had a fairly good group of people that we interviewed there to potentially either to interview or to utilize that group of candidates.
John.
Do you need to backfill too if you choose somebody inside? Or?
That would be possible if we took one from secure or not, yes. So
I would move that we give you the authority to fill the position using the other applications if you desire, and that you have permission to backfill the position if somebody from inside is hired.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to fill the position and if necessary to backfill if it's hired internally. Any other discussion amongst the board? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Stephen.
thank you guys very much.
Yep. Okay, moving right along, we have a request for 90-day temporary social work position. Rhonda Porter.
Okay, I do have.
Good afternoon, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Again.
Yes, good evening. Here is a board summary. I apologize for not getting this in the board packet to you. As you can imagine, with probably 95% of our staff at social services being females, we have a number of maternity leaves from time to time. And normally, in years past, from time to time, we sought approval to bring in a temporary position to help cover caseloads when we have maternity leaves. Over the last many years, we've just been distributing those caseloads and trying to manage them with our existing staff. We have a unique situation where we have a maternity leave coming up in August, and it's occurring in a unit. It's occurring in our child protection, child welfare unit, and that unit has 9 employees, and we've had some significant turnover with that staff. 4 of them are within their 6-month probationary periods. In fact, one of them just started this week. The other one started a couple weeks ago. So we feel that at this time it would be very helpful if we could look to a temporary position to help fill the maternity leave that's coming up in August. We work with Merit System, and I've had some conversations with HR about how we might make that work. But because we've had so many positions left open because of turnover and length of time to fill, we have the money in the 2014 budget to cover the cost to that temporary position. So I'm looking for approval for up to 14 weeks. The maternity leave would be 12 weeks, but if we could get somebody to come on board a week or so before the leave, that would be ideal.
So this is basically a cost neutral to your budget, right?
It would be cost neutral. In fact, we've had...
You'd see a little savings because it's probably a different scale.
Correct.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second. The question that you're asking for 14 weeks rather than 12.
Correct. I was hoping that if we could get somebody at least maybe a week before the leave started, that would be ideal, so they could spend some time with the staff that would be going out. So
Is that what the motioner?
Up to 14 weeks, yeah.
Okay.
Is this, are these earning positions?
This would be a child protection, child welfare caseload, and so some of the families that we serve on that caseload, the children are eligible for what we call targeted case management. So they can claim based on, there's a number of factors if the children qualify and the services qualify, but we do earn revenue based on the activity as well.
So we get reimbursed from the state.
Correct.
You stated that a lot of times we don't backfill on maternity leave and stuff like that, or extended sick leave, whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of new ones in this section. Aren't we going to be involved in a lot of training here?
Well, what we're hoping, what we probably are going to have to do is we're probably going to have to reorganize some of the tasks that would take longer for training or require more extensive involvement. So we're going to have to do some reorganization. There are going to be some tasks that a brand new person not familiar with our system at all, we may not have them do, so we still may have to adjust some things. But the other piece is we're hoping that maybe we could find somebody that has some experience, or maybe some staff that have recently retired that maybe could come back to fill that would have some experience. So we'll have to look at the availability, but yeah.
Okay, we did have a motion and a second, Don. Any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, we're running a little bit ahead, but I would assume there's going to be some folks who are going to maybe come closer to the 6 o'clock time for this next item. So let's go through the committee reports. Frank, do you have any committee reports today?
Tuesday, an executive committee meeting with FMCOG. We approved the hiring of a transportation analyst and an office manager and went over the CEO evaluations. Thursday, I went to Soil and Water Conservation District. They've planted around 16,000 trees already this year, and they still got around, I don't know, another 1,000 or so left that they can sell that could be planted yet. They're going out and spraying for leafy spurge, which there's quite a bit this year. I guess they had a question, Brian, on the budget. Did they get a notice on the budget? Because they're still waiting for a timeline on budget, so did they?
Yeah,
Oh, they're going to be mailed tomorrow. Very good. Okay, very good. Monday, I had a meeting in Heartland Trails, which they got some fairly good news. They requested $3.1 million in funds. They got 2.6. So, but there's a situation there that, I mean, all these funds are divided out, and if they, if some of the people that got some funds, if they don't have plans in on time, there may be some of that money available. And at the same time, if we don't get our plan going, some of our money could go to someone else. So we got to get going on that trail, you know. There's good representation there yesterday, and a lot of people involved in that. I think that'll get going.
Frank, is this money for both planning for the ours segment and for building?
Yeah, ours was $100,000 for about planning for Moorhead to Hawley, and that dropped down to about $86,000.
Okay.
And finishing the trail from Frazee to Detroit Lakes, that dropped down to about a little under $2 million, something like that. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Okay, and then last night I went to the Hawley City Council meeting, and they have good news too. They got their bond rating was upgraded 2 steps, you know, to AA bond rating. They got a hotel that's opening soon out there. They were talking about elections a little bit. There's 4 to 5 positions are all up for elections there, you know. So then I went there. I went to Keene Township. They talked mostly about road maintenance and stuff like that, and they have a lot of truck usage on some of their roads from beat trucks, so concerned about that. But that was my meetings.
All right, thank you, Frank. Grant?
I also had the Heartland Trail meeting with Frank, and I think he covered that pretty well. What did happen was the bonding money that we had requested for the trail was reduced by 13.5%, I think they said, across the board, and that happened on all the projects that were funded around the state. So, but the money that we've got for planning and getting the trail ready to be shovel ready, we'll have adequate money because MetroCog is partnering with us now. So, and they're going to have some matching funds, so we should be fine with that. had Land of the Dancing Sky yesterday also, and had reports from staff that are involved with elderly issues, or issues for the elderly, and I will be the chair of that organization starting this fall. So, and that was it for me.
One question to Frank, are they going to be doing rebidding on nutrition this year?
They are this year, so,
Okay.
which is always a fun thing.
John?
Okay, didn't have a lot of things. We did had some time with the Historical and Cultural Society, as always, some events and visits. But on Thursday, we had a full day of Lakes and Prairies and West Central Community Action together had an event. It was a risk management event, and primarily talked about fraud and risk management for that, and how to ways to reduce the opportunities for fraud in your organizations and so on. It was very interesting. We also had following that, we had a board meeting for Lakes and Prairies, and pretty routine business with that. Yesterday we had a meeting with the city of Moorhead and some people from our SWAC committee to talk about possibilities of working together with the incinerator, with also this transfer station and where it might be located and things like that. And that went very well. We were very pleased with Moorhead's willingness to work with us on this, and I think we should be able to progress pretty rapidly. Today I attended the adult mental health LAC meeting for Wayne's committee. But since he couldn't be there, I was there and listened to the concerns again. And there's continues to be concerns about transportation needs, and we're having a meeting next week to start addressing some transportation issues for not only for the mentally ill, but other people as well. So we're doing that with social service. That, I guess, is all, except that tomorrow night there's candidates for county commission. They're invited to the Scree Town Hall for an annual candidates meeting. So we're starting already on those things. So it'll be tomorrow night.
That must be in your district.
You're coming too, huh?
I don't know anything about it.
Oh, yeah, it's in my district. Yeah,
Right.
Scree's in my district.
All right. That's what I would assume. Okay, is that finished, John?
Yeah.
All right, I had last week, my afternoon was taken up with these maintenance interviews. We pretty much did them all in one afternoon with it, and again, it was good to go through the process, and through that process, I think we found ourselves a good candidate. It's obviously it's going to be difficult to replace Robbie Norman, who was here for many, many years and did an outstanding job for us. Then on Thursday, there was a diversion authority meeting, and of course, most of the discussion was on the authorization of that project. There was quite a bit of land development issues, and of course, most of this is happening on the North Dakota side, and in terms of the construction projects with the Oxbow, Hicks, and Bakke levee that continues to move on. And there was another court filing in opposition to that apparently yesterday. Mayor Wallaker did talk, and he did say that they anticipate that in 4 years Fargo will have their levees built to equal protection of Moorhead's to the 100-year level. At that point in time, one side will probably no longer be higher than the other side, if that truly happens. So there a lot of the in-town work to go along with the diversion authority is proceeding quite well. Brian, let's go to you. That's all I had. Brian, we'll go to you, and then we should be getting close to time here.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It was a short week for me last week. With your gracious approval, I took 3 days vacation, so that left me only
Did
2
you
days.
ever approve that?
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, was he gone?
I don't know that we ever got approval to go, did you?
He told us he was.
Then I don't have to take vacation if I didn't get it approved.
You are on probation.
That's right, affirmative. Yeah, we had the afternoon interviews with the maintenance supervisor, and I really want to thank the panel for that, we had some good discussion. It's a real good process. We had some further meetings with just kind of an informal discussion with some city officials in regards to a jail. We've got jail issues. We know it, and they know it, and we need to work on some solutions, which we need to talk about. And we also had another meeting with solid waste issues, and Commissioner Everett already reported on that. I came away from there very, very pleased. I think we're going to move along. The city needs a different location for their transfer station, and we need locations for electronics, and we need to transfer some of the solid waste to the burner at Perm, and we need trucks to do that and trailers, and it's going to be a real exciting time to work with that. And as always, some personnel issues are ongoing. When you have 400 employees, it's ongoing, it seems like. So I met with Joe for about an hour and a half this morning, get him rolling. And of course, Rhonda and I have spent quite a bit of time in the last day and a half on this Churches United issue and clarification of that. We'll be talking with in about 15 minutes or 10 minutes here. So put in quite a bit of work on that. And Commissioner from Polk County stopped by yesterday in regards to the Arts Trail. Mr. Gross, Craig Burness was by and just wanted to clarify some things with the DNR and follow up on that. So I spent about 20 minutes with him on that. And then I had down here, we had a PIC committee. We didn't. That was canceled this afternoon. So. Could you read that will conclude my report.
Thank you. You got to do that right in the middle of it.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I just want to do just a minute here of some cleaning up. Tomorrow, there's a meeting of the DMV Construction Committee at 9 o'clock. And Frank, you're going to be there, right? And
That's at 9 o'clock?
Mm-hmm. Tomorrow
We've got the
morning.
extension committee tomorrow at 8:30 too.
Okay, well, that's, we've got some dilemmas because I was going to be put on that committee in place of Wayne while Wayne's absent. So I wanted to go to that, but I was also committed to Pat to read that resolution at the MCOMs tomorrow at 9 o'clock for that was the elder abuse issue, wasn't it? Is there somebody else that could read that on behalf of the county if I couldn't get there?
Are you going to be an extension?
Yeah, we're supposed to be at extension. I was planning on going to the elder abuse meeting, but not right away, and they want to do that right at the beginning. So. I'm not sure.
Brian, could you get over there and read that proclamation for us? Oh, you get to be at the construction meeting. Never mind.
I'll be there as well.
Rhonda, would you? We would certainly like to be there, but it's a morning of a lot of conflicts. And that construction project is getting close to wrapping up, and I think we gotta. I think I should be there for that. So, all right, okay, very good. And apologize to the people for not being there. All right. Okay. You know what I do? I had mentioned to people that this is an important issue for a lot of you, and I did tell people that it was going to be on the agenda for 6 p.m. So I don't want to start before 6 p.m. in case there's somebody who's on their way up that we want them the opportunity to be here. So at this time, we're going to take a 4-minute break. It is now 6 o'clock. I feel comfortable getting back on to this agenda item. And I think I'd like to start with just a brief update to you all as to date what actions the county board did take in the matter of the Churches United project that was going to the Minnesota Housing Financing Agency. And on June 3rd, Churches United was on our agenda asking us to support the need for the funds that are available for a site for a permanent supportive housing facility. And in that process, there were several questions asked at the time, and one of those questions, and I believe it was by Commissioner Wayland, was to the location. And clearly the response from Churches United at that particular meeting is that they were not ready to announce that location to us or to the public. But what the county was asked to do, because it really wasn't, in our mind, it wasn't about the location, it was about, do we confirm with the need of such a facility? And we went through and saw presentations, and our board came to the conclusion that yes, there is a need for a facility of this kind. Some of you in your comments and calls to us also agreed with what the conclusion that we came to. Oftentimes it does come down to site selection becomes the issue. However, nowhere in the county's actions did we support, endorse of any kind, any site selection. Our process was simply to state that we agree with the need. And just a little bit about on the needs. We're talking about, in some instances, families with young children being homeless. We as a county cannot sit in a position to say we're going to just let them remain on the streets. We're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it anymore. We have a significant portion of our homeless people who are veterans of the armed services. I'm not going to turn my back on members of the armed services, on veterans. We need to try to help them get stabilized and start being productive again in society. And I would think that my fellow commissioners on this board would agree with those assumptions that we made. I do want to point out to you that on page 3 of the document that comes before our county staff to fill out in terms of this application, and on page 1 of the application, it's the housing proposal information to be completed by the applicant or sponsor.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I do have some copies if you'd like me to pass those out.
Sure, you're more than welcome. You can pass them out there.
There are 50 copies here, so we'll cover everything.
I'm going to continue talking while they're being passed around because we do have a limited time, and I know we would like to allow a few of you to be able to speak. But again, we need to know that it's 6:30. We have commitments on something else. So in this process, on page 3 of the document, and again, this goes to what the perception might have been of what the county did or did not do in terms of supporting any site on this project. Right on page 3 of the document, down below, it says, please note, Minnesota housing staff may contact the county official for additional information regarding this proposal. And then it also states, this letter does not constitute a commitment by the county to fund services and is not to be considered an approval of the proposed housing site or services. That is language that's put in there by the Minnesota Housing Authority, not by Clay County. So the Minnesota Housing Authority already recognizes that we're not involved with the site selection. That's Minnesota Housing Authority's language, not Clay County's. So this is where we are today, and again, we've stated all along that what we have done is we have supported and agreed that the need for facilities in Clay County is here. We can sit and have that debate tonight, but we're not going to. This needs to be, we need to hear of your concerns. I know most of you were here with a concern about where it's going, and we're going to have to try, we're hoping that we can somehow work with you folks, work with Churches United, and work with the city of Moorhead to better understand this. But, you know, I think what I'd like to do now is see if any other commissioners want to make any comments. And then I do understand there's a couple of petitions that went out that I'd like to allow, because they talked to me, and I would like to allow those to be presented. Board members, any comments?
Well, I guess I'd just like to comment that I don't think any of us can question the need. We have, our shelters are full. We need permanent housing for people. People are staying much longer than they, well, we don't want them at all in the shelters. We would like them to always have homes, but they're staying much longer than they have in the past, and there needs to be more permanent housing. This gives an opportunity. 41 units would be developed in this project, and 16 apartments for individuals and 24 for families, and some for large families. It's totally inappropriate and unacceptable that we have this many homeless people that have no place to live. I would certainly urge the Churches United to reconsider their location, but that's up to them. It's not our decision to make. We simply are saying that this is needed, and we want to apply for, we want them to apply for the $6 million in possible funding to help secure this for the county. So I understand why some people might be concerned, but that doesn't take away the need, and it doesn't take away the fact that we want to act in an appropriate way to deal with the homeless in our community.
I really don't have, I think Commissioner Campbell and Everett covered it pretty well. I mean, the bottom line is we authorized applying for funding, not for a location, which is not the county's position to take, deciding anything to do with the location. And I think we probably better give people a chance to talk. We've only got 20 minutes till our truth and taxation. So.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Frank, did you?
The comments are pretty much the same as theirs. So
yeah. And again, the final comment on it is when it comes to the county never has a say in what is constructed within the incorporated cities. We don't get involved with that. That's not our place to do it. We don't have the planning and zoning regulations for it. Those all fall within the guidelines of the cities. So that clearly is not something that we want to even get into because it's out of our purview. But I think at this point we'll open it up. We do have a microphone at the podium there. I would ask that as you come up, if you want to state your name and talk to us about your concerns. We do have Rhonda Porter and Pat Boyer from our Human Services Department here, and we also have Jane Alexander is here, and I didn't catch the other lady's name from Churches United. They are here, so if there's questions there, yeah, maybe state your name. And
my name is Amber Dahl, and I'm a resident of the Arbor Park District. I've lived there for 4 years now. Thank you. And I did talk to our mayor about it last Wednesday and had a 20-minute conversation with her. And I guess the main reason why my husband and I have a lot of concerns is that we've been doing foster care for the county for 3 years. We love it. It's our purpose. It's our ministry. We've had 11 children in our home. We've taken care of kids that have lice so bad they have scabs on their head. And that, in our backyard, is the drainage ditch, and it would be right across from us. And our kids come from situations where the police is called, and we were hoping to provide an environment for them. And maybe it's selfish on our part. That would be a bit more tranquil than what I'm envisioning. And I have tried calling Jane Alexander, and I haven't received a phone call back. But we plan to continue to do foster care, even if we have to leave and go someplace else to Dilworth or another part of our community where I feel like our kids would be completely safe. Because the truth is the demographics and the situations are unknown, and that presents a fear factor. And I have actually worked in the Cass County Jail as an assistant chaplain for 14 months. And I've worked with a lot of the ladies that might be there at Churches United. So I'm not going at this with a judgmental attitude, because I'm actually still very good friends, and I write to a friend of mine who is serving time down in Alabama in a prison, federal prison. We're very good friends. I've seen them at their best, and I've seen them at their worst, and I know that people with addictions are not the same people they were before addictions, and I know that their behavior changes. And I guess the fact that it would have security 24/7 bothers me. I would rather have an apartment that just does background checks, anything else, than have a situation where the police will be called every day. And I know that happens because my next door neighbor used to work at the one that's next to Churches United, and they do have police called quite frequently, and that would be in my backyard. Those are my concerns. I'm trying not to make this too long, but I do want them to get a second chance. I just don't know if this is the right location. And that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
Hi, my name is Jody Hoffman, and I know I've talked to all of you individually, and I appreciate the time and the callbacks that I've received. I'm a resident of Arbor Park, and just recently found out through the grapevine, through the neighborhood, that this project was being approved by the commissioners to be placed in our backyard. And I guess what concerns me and everyone that I've talked to in the neighborhood is the demographic of this population, and we're asking that you rescind your support for the grant. I understand you didn't know the location, that Churches United decided not to disclose that to you, and I understand that this was also a grant-specific, site-specific grant, so they were well informed as to where they were going to be building this location. And through the research that I've done, the information does indicate that this demographic is a very high-risk demographic, and it does contain 50% of people that are severely, have severe mental illness, and 30% that have alcohol or chemical addiction. Another 16% is a combined, addiction and mental illness, and that population is definitely high risk for our neighborhood. And we have children. We have a neighborhood close by that has a lot of elderly, people in their community that can't protect themselves. I believe there's a more appropriate location for this, and there's many locations that can be chosen for it. Through my visits last night with the neighborhood, I received 28 signatures and residents that are very concerned about the traffic at this location. Not so much that the people there, I understand they're going to be under 24/7 security, but there are people that we see from Churches United already that are traffic that gets turned away from Churches United, and they're coming out into our community and proposing a threat to us. So I believe there are many other locations that the city needs to consider, as well as Churches United needs to consider when building a location like this, and not just putting us in a position of being reactive instead of proactive. So 90% of the people that I talked to in my community last night approve of looking for a different location and are very concerned for their safety, not only their safety, but their property values. So I don't want to take up all the time, and I do want other residents to be able to speak to this. And I know Jim from Pineview Estates has a statement as well.
Did you have petitions you wanted to
I
submit
have
to us?
72 signatures that I would like to submit, but not all of them have copies, made, so I'd like you to make copies prior to giving them to you.
All right. Phil?
I'm Jim Renslow, and I live at Pine View Cottages, just on the east side of 30th Street. And Pine View Cottages is an over 55 community located on the east side of 30th Street, and across from 30th Street are the Eastern Homes, and the site, the project proposed by Churches United would be just to the east of where there currently is an open field. We wish to voice safety concerns of the elderly Pine View residents, some of whom are over 100 years old, and others are profound physical or mental handicaps. Several Pine View residents are very vulnerable, and we have nothing about the proposed project until the article appeared in the Fargo Forum. When the site was selected, it appears little prior attempt was made to determine or to consider impact of the project on nearby neighbors, and no effort was made to inform or educate any of us about what we might work together for the good of all. Pineview residents are vigilant because residents of East 10 Homes, just west of us, use the oval dead-end street day and night as a convenient shortcut to the Dilworth Walmart. Our severely disabled Pineview resident was stunned suddenly by the notice of a young man peeping in her bedroom window. And we should the Churches United apartment project be located at the proposed site, our homes will be sandwiched between the apartment site and the East End Homes, which increases the likelihood of neighborhood trespassers. While we are in sympathy with the unfortunate people who desperately need a safe place to live, we do elderly and disabled folks not only deserve a safe place to live. So having a guard at the door of the apartment building only protects only the residents of the building. We are concerned that the non-residents who, while seeking access to their relatives or friends, may hang out in the nearby hoping to gain entrance to the building or make contact with the apartment residents. If Churches United locates in the proposed site, there will likely be an increase in foot traffic into our private street. And we ask the Commission to evaluate its support of the project's proposed site and the eastern edge of our community. Would there not be more appropriate and safe locations for the facility? Thank you for hearing our concerns.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Anybody else care to speak?
My name is Deanna Hines. We moved to Arbor Park about 3 years ago when I retired from teaching. Yes, we are concerned about the homeless. Don't take it that way, but you also have to be concerned about the people that are already there, paying taxes. Our property values will go way down. Already we've tried to sell our home a couple times because we wanted to downsize. And most realtors say it's your location, your location. It's hard to sell a home in Moorhead now as it is. Property value, compare a Moorhead home with a North Dakota home, you're getting a lot less money. You add this mix to it, and everyone's property values are going to go way down. Granted, they need a location, but there are tons of locations out there. Just look at the downtown area itself, that a new building would make it appear better, or out in an industrial area where there's no housing for small children. I really think you need to consider how you support this. You need to consider the people that are already located there. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane, would you like to comment?
Yes, sure. I want to really face the audience since that's the group I want to address. I'm Jane Alexander. I'm the Executive Director of Churches United for the Homeless. And I have several things I want to just respond to. First of all, Amber Dahl, I am so sorry. I had a board meeting today until about 3, and then I was on the phone with the County Commission. I really wanted to call you back. I'm very sorry. I wish we had more time to talk about this with all of you. The site location is really, it meets our needs really well in a way that other property can't. It has a bus, it's close to services. Housing, the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency gives you points for where you're going to spend their money on housing, and this is a neighborhood that we want children to grow up in because there are abutting neighbors. There are services you can walk to. Our families don't have cars. Our families are beaten down by all sorts of circumstances, and they are going to need to piece things together like a bus and walking. They're going to be busy putting their lives back together, and the nearness to a grocery store and to a Walmart are huge for a family that's struggling. So that's why this neighborhood is so good. Another reason is that you are neighbors. You are families too. And these are families as well. You know, they are families trying to raise their children. And the miraculous thing about getting to know the families is that they are really kind. Really very kind, and they are going to want to be the best neighbors they can be. They will probably surprise you in that they will be, you know, not, I cannot imagine that whatever you're imagining, I don't think that it's going to be happening. Most of the families that we see at Churches United have fallen into homelessness because they can't pay rent. And, you know, they haven't been able to raise enough money, have enough jobs, have enough income to afford a place to stay. So this is going to help them have a place to stay and, you know, help them get situated. There will be staff there that make sure that they will be focusing on what they need to be focusing on. We do not want people wandering in and out of the community making it hard for people. I mean, I would be very glad to contract with a security company that drove around, you know, and made the neighbors feel safe. We are going to do background checks. We absolutely have to make sure there are not sex offenders, and we absolutely have to make sure there's nobody who has a history of violence. We certainly will do them, and I'm sorry that has been a misunderstanding. Every housing place has to do background checks, and we, like every housing place, will do them. We also are going to have a housing management company because we, as shelter providers, are not skilled in that. And so we have under consideration 3 different very experienced housing management companies that will keep us safe and keep us to task, you know, and we're going to want to evict people who are not doing the right thing. We do it all the time at the shelter. We ask people to leave who are not doing the right thing. Well, okay. I think that actually, when we start building buildings on that property where there are trees, I think that it will be safer. I mean, we will have...
On the east side of Urban Park in the trees.
Sure.
Police have been called out there twice to evict them because they built a shanty town out there.
Sure.
We're talking about bus service. There's a bus stop right beside your building at Churches United now, and there's a vacant lot right beside that.
Okay. I appreciate those comments. When you develop the land, I think that there will not be people sleeping in the trees. The trees will be gone, and there will be...
It will take their place. Well, you're not building a house for everybody.
There's a couple of our backyards.
I live across the street from the high-rise, the more at Riverview Heights, where there are people who are poor and living with subsidies, and many people from Churches United go live there, and I am literally across the street. I have not ever had troubles with somebody coming into my yard?
We have.
Okay, okay.
On my backyard that
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you want to join me up here?
I just want to respond to a piece of that. So my name is Jen. I'm one of the program directors at Churches United. And I want us to be very careful about, there is criminal activity, and that is simply unacceptable. Trespassing in your yard is unacceptable, whether that person is homeless or not. And we can make the assumption, or I think that we have, that some of the folks that have misbehaved in your neighborhood are struggling also with homelessness. But we also will not tolerate that. And we've had people sleep outside by the trees by our bus stop, and we do not allow that.
When you kick them out, where are they going to go?
We also must remember that the new property is not a shelter. This is a home.
They're going to come there looking for shelter because they know that it's a possibility. They don't know that. So then where are they going to go?
I think there's a misunderstanding in that. And I want to just mention, it's the group of people that live right now at Churches United is not like 90% violent felons or felons at all. No, some of them are.
Nobody that lives in that apartment complex is going to be a felon.
The one thing I wanted to mention was the gentleman who came up and spoke in red. I'm not sure where he went. Here. There was a man who lived in Churches United and then went through our group residential housing program and moved into Gateway Gardens. He was 82 years old and in housing for 1 year before he passed. Our chaplain took him to buy his groceries. He had no felonies. He had no credit because he had worked as a hobo in his youth. It's not a blanket, some terrible background that brings a person to become homeless. And so your neighbors will be diverse now like they will be once.
I'm a veteran. I'm sure there's other veterans in here.
I didn't mean to.
I support the veterans. I support this. I just don't want it in my backyard.
The reality is, if I go to sell my house, and they come and look at it and say, oh, by the way, there's a homeless facility right here.
It's going to be an apartment building.
They didn't say, well, they can't use that against you or whatever. They're gonna. They're gonna say, well, I'm not gonna want to live here.
Churches
No matter how good the money look, they're still gonna say, I don't want to live here.
It's not a homeless shelter.
It's permanent housing. It's going to be like every other apartment building, with the exception that there will be staff to make it more secure.
Well, then that raises my question, was how come you have to have security? I own an apartment building, I don't have,
Sure.
my lot back,
Sure.
so I've looked at that empty lot for 5 years.
Sure.
I see people walking the back of my lot all the time, walking across my property. I let my lab out to chase them off. Most of them are on the other side now, which would be your side of the property.
Sure.
But the property value is going to go down. It's been a quiet neighborhood. I can't imagine, I heard it's a comment of maybe 50 children.
At least 50, probably 75.
50. Well, if there's not a fence, I guarantee you those children are not all going to be supervised.
Well,
they're going to be down in that dike, and if we get a flood,
there will be an access road right along where the dike is, where that canal is. There will be a road there as access to the property, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's the plan.
Have you checked other locations?
Yes, we have. We certainly have.
So we got
a whole bunch of land right there, and that's still close to what you want to be, just across the road.
It's not a residential neighborhood.
Out of the Fargo community, 58% of homeless people are in Fargo. Building Fargo.
This is money that's coming from the state of Minnesota to help Minnesota house the people who struggle with homelessness. Pardon?
Apartments right there. They're not residential.
Where?
Right across.
From Slumberland?
Right behind Walmart, the old Walmart,
Mm-hmm.
just east of those apartments. That's residential.
Yeah.
BMW owns all that land.
The development's been very hard to build. We've got empty lots on both sides of us. It's just finally starting to build.
It's booming now.
The neighbor next to me just moved in there a week ago. Very nice. He's like, I wouldn't have bought this.
I have a neighbor that's breaking ground beside me that doesn't know if he's going to finish building his house.
So, I mean, if that's fair, I work with builders all the time. That's going to have a huge effect.
We're at 6:30, and I know you
Yeah,
have something
yeah.
else to do. So we will have more.
Ask something.
Sure.
Could you please tell me, what was that housing in Johnson Oil? What is that for?
Gateway Gardens, that is permanent supportive housing for people who are homeless, and many of them come from our shelter, and they stay there. Pardon?
Sounds like we
It doesn't house families, yeah.
That's individual?
That's individual. And that property cost $1 million for them to clean up the oil under that, and the rest of the property is probably similar. It's not worth the government putting a dime into that property. The government wants to very much to be proactive in creating neighborhoods that are going to help the children leaving homelessness not have to return to homelessness. Neighborhoods and communities change that.
We have kids too. One of my kids grew up in the same community. That's why I built a house there. That's why I'm here in my work groups, because I work every day and I work real hard to pay these incredibly high Minnesota taxes to live in a nice development. And now
The funny thing is, if we put your children and the children from Churches United together, they wouldn't know the difference, and neither would we. And I think that the mothers...
Kids, I'm talking about the felon who's in there. The guy that stole the grill out of his place.
I'm talking about the few, that's the question was, how come you need security?
You know...
I mean, if you need security, I mean, who wants that type of building that's right across you?
Actually,
and needs security?
the security is really more case managers who will be at the door to make sure people are going to school, where it's permanent supportive housing so that people get the support they need.
I tell you what, I have to jump in here, and again, I do apologize. This came up, and we did have another deal that we are regulated by time to go to our Board of Equalization hearing. I do want to make mention that Jane Alexander said she was talking on the phone with the commissioners this afternoon. It was myself and our administrator and Rhonda and Pat Boyer, and we did have a little bit of discussion, and the question was raised to Jane, well, what would happen is if we didn't have, if you didn't have this $6 million grant? And their reply to me is they intend to still buy that property. Is that correct, Jane?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
So this becomes an issue where if they feel they have the proper funding mechanism to buy the land, it then becomes a zoning issue, and the property, and you apparently talked to city staff.
Yes.
And we do need to go quickly here, but
we did talk to city staff just to make sure that we were looking at a piece of property that was zoned correctly, because we did not want to have to go through the process of having to make some zoning changes. And so we didn't get, we had a piece of property in mind, and we found out that it was multi-use, and that was what we needed to know.
Well, if they're going to get money and bill it anyway, then let's not use our tax dollars to fund it. They're going to get it anyway, they're going to buy the pot anyway.
yeah, and we don't. That's something that we don't have a say in terms of if they get the $6 million from the Minnesota Housing Authority. That doesn't come from Clay County. So, but you know what? I think and the purpose for our conversation this afternoon was to. We were really trying to look for an avenue where, obviously, we had an interest in talking with Churches United about could there be another site location that would work for them, and we were hoping to be able to have more community dialogue before this is ultimately done. And I think that is still a possibility to do. I think Churches United is willing to come to the table. I think we need to have members of the Morehead City Council at the table, because all of these residents are also, they've also gone to the city council members, and not only have I heard from most of you as other commissioners here, but I have also heard from council members who share with this concern in regarding this location. And if we truly all want to be good neighbors, we better all understand each other and understand the concerns of those that are there to try to make this all work. So I think there's going to be somewhat of a commitment on the part, and I think Jane has even said that she'd be willing to try to put the whole thing together. I do see we have a member of the ward council here tonight, but I do think, but we need to include all of you in this dialogue. You all have really good questions and really good concerns. There isn't a commissioner here who probably doesn't understand the dilemma that you're currently in based on this proposal. But is there a way that we can make it, as the one gentleman that spoke up, is there a way that we can accomplish some of these things that make us all a little bit more comfortable? Yeah.
One important thing, too, is that there is time. This decision is not going to be made till October 23rd, is my understanding, by the state.
We're closing on our property June 3rd.
Well, okay, but what we would be dealing with is the grant, and that's not going to be decided till October 23rd.
Yeah, that's the one area that we do, we do have some say in is the grant application, and we certainly, as a county board, in talking with Rhonda and Pat, we probably have some abilities to take a look at the language that we had in support of the funds for the purpose, and at some point in time we might have to look at amending those. I talked with you about that today, Jay, and that's significant to us, and all of these people's concerns are significant and important to us as well.
Churches United have location picked out when you came to the last meeting and got your approval.
Sir, I made a comment on that.
I know you said they did.
They didn't tell us.
I understand that. Now I just question as to why.
Because we were in a place in our negotiations that we did not want the seller to know that we were, we were in some particular place in the negotiations where our board did not want us to disclose it.
And why didn't you disclose it to the residents of Barber Park? Why didn't you disclose it to all of us? Was it something you were hiding up until you got approved?
No.
We would like not to disclose to the buyer of my house that it's there either, but
If they'll see it. If you're open and honest, with us, it'd be different.
yeah.
No, if you're open for discussion on all of this, why the very close right before, obviously, it's been taken for years, why can't you look for something else in the meantime?
Exactly.
Would you help us find something that is in a residential area?
There's a lot right beside the
Which
building.
other neighborhood would be okay?
Your backyard.
Your backyard, there's a built lot right beside that.
You said so yourself.
What backyard?
Yours.
There's no Churches United?
You said
There's oil over
welcome
there.
your backyard.
Pardon?
You and the mayor both said it was welcome in your backyard.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
I would welcome it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming. As Commissioner Everett said, we cannot, the county board nor the Morehead City Council can prevent Churches United from going through with the purchase of public property. They are an entity unto themselves that has every right to buy a parcel of property in a community just like any of you do. Where the difference comes into play is doing the homework, and they've done their homework, and they've been told by city staff that what they want to do would meet and fall within the legal realms of their zoning. So with all that in mind, and with the concerns that everybody has, well, city council, county commission, our county commission is very, very nervous about this. We're just as nervous as you people are about the potential for things happening. And the best thing that we can do is between now and October, still meet. We still want to have the dialogue with you as residents to try to come up with, and you know what, in the course of that process, if we as the city and as the county can potentially convince them to look at other sites, I think they would probably still do that. So, but anyway, we do have to end this topic for now. I'm sorry we couldn't do any more for you other than the fact that, as this document stated, because I know a lot of you assume that we gave approval of a site, and it clearly states that the approval is not for housing, site, or services. The county did none of those things. Nancy. Real quickly, Nancy, we're really behind on our...
Nancy Otto, Moorhead City Council, First Ward, and I just want to assure the people here that, like you, we did not know. City staff didn't tell us either. And it really, I tell you, it really toasts me that something as controversial as this was discussed with staff from Churches United, and city council members were not told. The first I knew about it was when I got my packet on Friday night. That's it. And I have had an exchange of emails to try to get to the bottom of why. And then at our council meeting, if you notice, the mayor pulled it off the agenda because she sensed there would not be full support on council. So we didn't even have an opportunity to vote on it, to vote it down as far as our resolution of support. So I just wanted you to know the rest of the story, that I hear your concerns, I share your concerns, and you know, it is just mind-boggling that something like this went this far without the public and council members being informed. Okay. Thank you for coming.
All right, Peter, we got to get, where's Nancy?
Do you need to adjourn?
Oh, yeah, we need to adjourn, yeah, I'm sorry. All right, the county board meeting is adjourned.